members are in attendance except for Matt Jewett. Can I call Emily Elzenblast to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting and remind the audience of the request to address board cards that must be completed and submitted to the board secretary if they wish to speak to an agenda item. Board policy provides for 2 cards. White cards to be submitted in order to speak to an agenda item, and blue cards to be submitted in order to speak during public comments. Policy also states there is a 5-minute maximum time limit per speaker. Due to the open meeting law, board members are not allowed to address items that are not on the agenda. If you do not want to address the board or wish to give your comments in writing, you can do so on a goldenrod sheet, and all members will receive a copy. Can we have an approval of the agenda?
I move that the governing board approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes from the regular board meeting held February 5th, 2013. Is there a motion?
I move the governing board approve the minutes as submitted.
It's been motioned. Is there a second?
A second.
It's been motioned in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Public comments, we still don't have any. Okay. Superintendent's report. Shar has the floor. Yes.
Good evening. Thanks you to everyone who's in attendance this evening. As you know, recently Creighton District declared a vacancy on the district governing board, and Arizona Revised Statute 15302 gave the county school superintendent of schools final authority to appoint community members to fill vacancies on school district governing boards within the county. As per well-defined collaborative processes and procedures from the Maricopa County Superintendent of School, Dr. Don Covey, the collaboration team began a process to determine nominees who would move forward for consideration to fill that vacancy. And of course, Dr. Covey will make the final decision. The process has been completed, and all information was submitted to Maricopa County Educational Service Agency today, prior to the February 20th deadline, which is tomorrow. Accompanied materials to support the recommendation were also included. The following candidates will be moving on in the process. Dr. Ildi Lasko-Kerr, Mr. Jeff Bowles, and Mr. Todd Landfried. Following a nominee seminar on March 9th, final selection by the county superintendent will be announced and the community will be apprised of the final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyle. Next, we have the approval of consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, I need you to read the whole
Oh, okay.
thing.
Personnel actions from February 6, 2013 through February 19, 2013. Parentheses also. Okay. Move the governing board approve consent items A through C in accordance with policy EEDB-R.
Good job. Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next, under Educational Services, tonight we're going to hear from Ms. Sylvia Earle, Ms. Arnie Wessel, and Ms. Pam Burkhart to provide information about Arizona's Career Ladder program, including its purpose and its future. Additionally, information regarding the implementation of Career Ladder program in our district will be provided. Ladies, you have the floor.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, cabinet. While Mr. Wallner helps us get our little PowerPoint going for you, I'm gonna just share a funny story, at least I think it's funny, about the original writing of the Career Ladder program. Miss Wessel and I were on the original Career Ladder writing team, as was Dr. Boyle. Do you remember the time that we spent Easter weekend here writing and writing and writing and writing? We got to a point, I don't know if any of you have ever worked with a group of about 30 people trying to get them to finish a product, but it's quite a challenge, especially when they have to kind of talk over every little point. So while we were trying to get this finished, we got left here over Easter break by the superintendent, who went off on a trip and called in to see how we were progressing getting our work done. Arnie and I finally had to break up all of these little groups of people, so we had people in rooms all over district office. And we started about 7 o'clock every morning and worked until midnight every night for days on end to get this product finished. It was quite an adventure. And then we were all present at the legislature when they considered our application and approved it. So this evening we're going to give you just a little bit of background about the Career Ladder program, and I'll do that. And then Ms. Wessel's going to talk to you a little bit about the goals of the Career Ladder program. And then Ms. Earle's going to talk to you about the current Career Ladder program and the future, where we're going. In terms of background, most of you probably have heard of Career Ladder. It is essentially a performance-based compensation plan that rewards teachers for demonstrating excellence in teaching skills and in student achievement. There are 28 Career Ladder districts across Arizona. 14 of them are in Maricopa County. Career Ladder became law in Arizona in 1985-86. It's ARS 15-1898. Excuse me. And there were 3 groups originally approved: Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. Creighton was approved in the 1987-88 school year, and then there have been some approvals a little bit later on in 92-93, 93-94. There have been no new funds appropriated to bring new districts on since 1993-94, which has been a bone of contention. The real purpose of Career Ladder at its inception was to increase student academic achievement by attracting and retaining highly qualified, talented teachers. In our particular district, it has been a real carrot for bringing new teachers to our district. People have really valued our Career Ladder program. Teachers are recognized and compensated for their excellence, and that's in any Career Ladder program, and it is especially true in our district here in Creighton. Now, Ms. Wessel is going to talk to you a little bit about the Career Ladder program goals.
Sure. And before I get started, I have a little treat for you. I had my husband out with a flashlight last night. I'm like, I know I have a copy of this somewhere. And so we were in our shed looking. And this was one, the first 5 years were a pilot program. And then the first year for it really being official was at 1990. So I do have a copy of our application that I will send around that you can see. And I have a little copy for each one of you of some pages that I thought would be a little treat. I know I could call Shar because I know she probably had all the rough drafts and everything. She says absolutely
Under my
everything.
desk, in fact.
I'm sure she knows exactly where. Then I'll pass. But one of the things that I thought was fun before I talk about the goals, and here's some if people want to pass them around back there too. It's just funny to see who our governing board superintendent, where that's on the first page. And then on the second page is just our mission statement. To design a career ladder plan that will provide teachers with opportunities for career advancement, professional growth, and equal pay for equal performance without leaving classroom instruction. To provide a multi-level structure of professional positions in which advancement to a higher level requires improved or advanced teaching skills, improved or advanced teaching skills combined with other skills, and or educational leadership and innovation. And then the next page, I just kind of starred the teachers and the personnel that are still in the district that were on the original writing team and on the they were members of the committee that year. And then it was just interesting to see, we met the third Tuesday of each month during the school year and just some other information. So I thought that was just kind of a kick that I thought I would pass on to you. And if you do look at the Arizona Career Ladder website, it really does have a lot of fabulous information. History of the program, when all the 28 districts came on. It's really interesting if, just to look at the history of it. But on there, what it does say is the Career Ladder goals for the state of Arizona is to impact student achievement, motivate educators to improve their skills, attract, retain, and reward exemplary educators, and promote collegiality. And those are, and Pam, as Pam has already said, that it is 28 districts in the state of Arizona. And if you think of that, we have over 200 districts in the state of Arizona, so it is only 28. But some facts that I thought was kind of interesting that's on the webpage is 31% of Arizona students attend schools in career ladder districts. 40% of Arizona teachers are employed in career ladder districts. And over the years, the average has been about 70% of the eligible teachers participate in the career ladder programs. So that's looking at all the districts and what their percentages of eligible teachers that could be in the program. I just thought that was kind of interesting also. Our current career ladder program, what we do is our teachers qualify with a standard evaluation system. That has been a change with our SES. They do have to have the recommendation of the principals. We have not been able to have any new applicants since 2009, 2010, and you'll hear about that in a little bit because there was a lawsuit that ruled that career ladder was unconstitutional and we could not accept any more applicants, and you'll hear about that. Sylvia will talk to you about it. It's called the Gilbert lawsuit. In our program, we have 3 main levels. We have a career level, that's the highest, the experience level, and then the residency level. Our program is based on a student achievement plan, which we call the SAP. It has to be implemented and it's submitted annually. We also do 25 to 50 hours, depending on the level, of higher level responsibilities annually. And this is where my heart really wonders in my head what we're going to do in the future. Because if you think about all the people that have been on the ladder in the last few years, and that they are spending 25 to 50 extra hours a year doing leadership roles for our district, and they're doing it to make sure they get these higher level responsibilities. So they're doing it with no pay, and they're doing fabulous jobs, and I just cringe to think, how are they going to be compensated in the future? That kind of concerns me. There's observation by the Career Ladder staff, and just recently that was changed to every 3 years. because since we are doing the standard evaluation, they're also observed by their principal. And then with us fading out the program, we were, it was recommended that we could kind of lessen the annual observations. So we went to every 3 years, and that just happened last year. And then the compensation in our district currently ranges from $3,250 all the way to $7,000. That's kind of our current program. And Sylvia is going to start off by telling you all about the Gilbert lawsuit and why things have changed.
Yes. So because the career ladder was no longer allowed to add new districts after 1994, and Gilbert School District was one that wasn't allowed to join career ladder, they thought, well, if we file a lawsuit, maybe they'll let us join. The intent was just to have them be a part of the program, but instead it turned out that the program is unconstitutional and the program is going to be shut down. And so they decided to do it over a 5-year period, and it said that new teachers, new applicants couldn't apply after the 2009-10 school year. You'll see the further effects of this lawsuit. So on this slide, you'll see it's like a line graph just explaining each year. Oh, it didn't transfer well from my Mac to the PC. So the first year of the phase out over 5 years was 2010-11, and there were 198 teachers in our district on career ladder. The second year, 2011-12, was 119. Thank you. 119, so that was a 40% decrease, just because we couldn't add new people. And then when you went to the third year, that's this year, we are down to 81 people on career ladder. And that's a 32% decrease. And so I'm just projecting about 30% each year with that history. That will probably be down to about 60 to 40 teachers in the next 2 years. So if you want to look at the funding that we received from the state over the last 7-8 years here, you'll see that it has dramatically decreased, and you'll see it went from almost $2 million to down to $265,000 in that short time. And so what we are looking at the last 2 years are projected. That's what we're expecting to receive. Even that wouldn't be enough to cover our current program as it stands. However, we have, as you'll see on the next slide, we have enough funds from carryover funds to maintain the program over the next 2 years. Typically, they don't allow you to have more than a certain percentage of carryover, but they've been more lenient with it, and now we were able to carry over a little more. And so with that, so what's really positive is we think we'll likely be able to maintain our current program, those high expectations we have, the higher levels of responsibilities for the teachers, and the same compensation structure, the same level for the last 2 years of the program. And every year we need to tell them, because of the 20% decrease in funding each of those 5 years down to almost zero, we may have to decrease your personal compensation 20%. So they've been anticipating it and concerned about it, and we've never had to do that in Creighton because people have not returned to career ladder because we couldn't add new people, so we ended up with additional funds, and we've kind of saved that for this purpose.
So the 30% decrease in participants each year, what has caused that? People leaving the district, people not wanting to participate in the program?
For various reasons, people have left, and also they were afraid they weren't going to be making as much for the same amount of work, but actually they have been receiving the same amount of funds. But the worries, the concern that they may not, kept a lot of people out of the program. But we had to tell them that information because that was the right thing to do, was to tell them we are cutting the budget by 20% each year.
No, the state's cutting the budget.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. The state, that's true.
Very good.
Right. So we had to be honest with them about that. So when we gave them that information, it did deter some people from staying on career ladder, even though we now are likely to be able to keep that same structure.
Before that, had the numbers been the same, or had they gone up? I mean, because I think these 198 people, was it always kind of at that level, or had it gone down, or?
I'm trying to
just
remember.
curious.
You don't, the numbers? Yeah. There was a time before the lawsuit, before people understood that we were going to be losing the ladder altogether. that we kind of had a steady increase over time. There's always an effect of retirement or people leaving the district because it takes a year or two for a new staff member to be able to be evaluated and placed on the ladder. So as you turn staff over, you may have a slower growth, and we've done that. But we were having, I don't know, 250, 260 teachers a year on the ladder for quite some time. That was a program that was very popular in our district.
And additionally, besides retirement and teachers leaving the district, we have quite a few teachers who are in leadership positions in their school, whether they're an assistant principal or they're a coach, instructional coach, staff, or a Title I facilitator. Many of them were career ladder teachers, almost all of them. So to summarize, we know that the 30% decrease is possible, just like it has over the last few years. However, if we are able to tell the teachers it's likely that we'll maintain the structure and the funding, I think more people will stay on, but we just don't know. That's just an unknown. But we're not sure exactly how it'll affect our future participants next year and the year after. So what's the future of Career Ladder? Since the state will not fund Career Ladder after 14-15, Creighton will not be able to continue with Career Ladder program after that without another form of state legislated funding. Any other questions?
I have a bunch of questions. So can you put it back on the slide with the goals, the original goals of Career Ladder?
Sure.
Okay, and just leave that here. So when the judge, so I had the privilege of sitting on this steering committee for 2 or 3 years and being part of these conversations, and I remember how painful it was to hear teachers say, like, I'm not sure this is worth it to do this extra work and possibly get 20% less money to do the work. And I remember the district being very like upfront and saying, like, this is us planning for the future and we want to put that out there. So I commend you all for doing that. Can you refresh my memory in this judge ruling that this is unconstitutional? Is it just that the state is funding this for only certain districts? That's what's unconstitutional?
Yes.
So if the state didn't want to run it, but we wanted to do our own, the Creighton Career Ladder, let's just say we had $2 million, right? That's not unconstitutional for us to do. It's just that the state, it's unconstitutional for the state to play this with only certain districts and not all districts.
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of these goals, like the first one that is important to me, impact student achievement. I heard you say that this is popular, and know like anytime there's an opportunity to make more money, like great, that sounds popular. But I want to know, like, did we actually have any evidence that our Career Ladder program had the desired impact that we were looking for in student achievement?
Yes, in our district we do, and across the state. And what's really nice, and I'm trying, I did have it, they're on the Arizona Career Ladder website. There is all the research that's been done since the late 80s or 90s, and it's overwhelmingly stated that Career Ladder has had a positive impact on student achievement. I was trying to see the exact thing I have, but in our application that we have just submitted to the state, we have, I know it's, but we have quite a few places where we have iSteep, we have Azella, we have benchmarks, because we have to submit to the state a comparison of our Career Ladder teachers and their results compared to the rest of the district. And in the majority of everything that we do, the students who are in Career Ladder teachers classes perform better than the rest of our district.
Okay.
Especially in now.
Okay.
And that is shown evidence because we have to include that in every single application we do annually for the state.
Mm-hmm. So are there teachers that, other than the ones who are, I guess, concerned that, like, if they did this extra work,
and they might not get the money. Like, I understand that as a real concern, but are there other people who are just like, this is a bad program, like, we should not try to find a way to continue it?
In our district, you're saying, are there
Yeah.
teachers who are against career ladder?
Yeah.
You know, I believe that, you know, I mean, that it's been very popular all along, and people have, you know, jumped right into it, and even new teachers, one of the things that I remember in the past was they were not able to really apply and be on the ladder till their third year. And I mean, they were always trying to get exemptions and can't I go on earlier, and you know, and we had a developing teacher program for a while to where we gave a stipend for the first year, the second year, and then the third year they actually could apply to the ladder. It's always been very popular in our district. I'm sure you can find teachers out there that, you
Yeah,
know,
well, I
have
just,
negative things to say about it, but it's always been a real popular program in our
Yeah.
district over the 27 years.
so like, okay, so like, I just don't know, I mean, if this is such a popular program and it has, and we actually meet these goals, let's consider like we're successful in meeting these goals, like, number one, I know we don't have $2 million, I get that, right? But if we did, that would be awesome. Like, wouldn't there be a way that we could just roll this into our current compensation plan? I see them every year, and we have like the charts, and if you get these different steps, you get money, but why isn't this part of that? Why isn't this part of just the base, the way that we pay our teachers, if this is such a popular and successful program? Has anyone considered that before?
Okay, I know that statewide, Sylvia and I go to the CLAC meetings monthly, and one of the things that we have been working on for, I don't know, 3 years now, is trying to approach legislature and have them come in and say, okay, if you're doing a performance-based compensation plan, it's very frustrating to CLAC as a whole group working successfully for 27 years and wondering, why aren't you using this as a base? But, you know, money is one of the it's just not able to be funded in the state of Arizona. Just having Gilbert come in alone on that year, it was going to be an increase of $175 million. And it's the state of Arizona with the crunch and with what was happening in 2007, we couldn't do it.
And so, I'm still learning, like, Arizona, like, public financing of schools. I mean, we actually couldn't spend that money. If we went out and privately fundraise this money, like, that would be against the law to spend it because of our revenue control limits. Is that correct? Or could we possibly do something like that? Because I heard Dr. Essex say something, and it sounded like that's what he was telling me, but it wasn't quite clear. It wasn't quite clear to me.
I don't know if
Scott, you want to take that one, then I'll.
If you had
Car
2 million
washes.
donated funds, I don't know why you couldn't.
Okay.
And you also may or may not know that the state did develop a career ladder program that was to phase in as this one phased out, and it was almost the same thing available to all districts, and then they chose not to fund it. So it really is on the book still, it just doesn't have the money in it.
I think that, back to your original question about why haven't we or why might we not apply some of this thinking or some of the strategies we've used in Career Ladder with our regular teacher salary schedule. For the time that we've had Career Ladder, we couldn't do that because those two schedules had to be kept completely separate. You could not do that. Going forward into the future, if the district determined that it might want to go in that direction, and we had our own plan for performance-based compensation, then, you know, certainly it would be doable, but it wouldn't be under the guise of an Arizona Career Ladder program, because that will become extinct and we will not have the authority to budget for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I'm at the point where don't rely on the state, like, let's come up with our own, let's figure out how to pay for it. I know these things are bigger and harder to do than to say and think and dream, but I think moving forward, that might be something we should consider and we should look into in incorporating it into our regular pay schedule with new and develop new evaluation systems and other tools that we've developed over the last couple of years.
And I think the move is in that direction nationally as well as in the state of Arizona, because even Governor Brewer in her budget proposals proposed something akin to a performance-based plan, but her plan is to take money from currently funded money to school districts and repurpose it. It does not include any new money. And I don't think any district's going to be happy to do that after all of the years of reductions.
I have a question. Carl brought up, with his questioning, brought up a question in me. 1990, all I can remember is 1999, I was 98, I think it was. I was a teacher at Gateway when the first year it opened. And I remember seeing in my pay scale a this way and that way. So had I taken more classes, I'd go this way. Had I just moved up every year, I'd go this way, et cetera, et cetera. Is that what you're talking about, the career ladder, or was that just regular teaching?
That's what we call the standard salary schedule.
Oh.
That's the standard salary schedule, and it differs from the career ladder schedule in that in order to move on the career ladder's salary schedule, you have to have the evaluation and then the student achievement. So there are different criteria for moving.
I just know that, I mean, I don't sit on the meet and confer committee. Like, if you all come up to an agreement as a board member, I'm interested in hearing that. But I just don't, I think that this sounds like a better plan for our teachers and students versus just getting more classes that don't necessarily meet these goals.
That's interesting, because one of the original criteria for the Career Ladder program was that it could not be based on years of service and additional education. It had to be based on observation, evaluation of performances, teaching skills, and student achievement.
Yeah.
So they differed, they're very different philosophically.
I'm just saying it should be standard.
To me, it sounds very similar to National Board Certification. Is that maybe, like, I'm just thinking, is that what schools are thinking that they want to move towards, or is the state providing any kind of funding for teachers or districts to provide for National Board Certification training?
Not that I think that there are some efforts on the part of the state and have been for quite some time to encourage teachers to become nationally board certified. It is different from a career ladder program, however. It is a very individual effort that a teacher takes in collaboration with maybe a mentor who may or may not be within the district. And it has lots of observations and lots of paperwork. And it's definitely different than a career ladder program. National board certification, however, is typically recognized all across the United States. So you take that certification with you wherever you go.
Any other questions? Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time. The next agenda item is under personnel, approval of student expulsion. Is there a motion? Oh, I can read the background. The reference student is recommended for expulsion from the Creighton School District pursuant to Creighton School District policies JIC and JKE. I think that's an I. I can read it. Is there a motion?
I have questions before we, you can take that in motion first, I don't.
Sure, let's hear your questions.
Do I have to talk about anything? No. Okay. So, sorry, I guess I'm looking at the wrong box, the public one. As far as I recall, the student in question, the last incident was an altercation. It was an 8th grader involved in an altercation with a 2nd grader. Is that correct?
And that was one of the altercations that I read about, yeah.
Okay, and so like to me, like totally like horrible and not something that we can tolerate. Like we need to make sure our kids are safe in school. I guess my concern, and not that we have the expertise in all these things, but like there's a pattern that this student in particular has demonstrated in terms of like violent displays of just aggression. I want to hear more, I guess, about like what we're doing. Like when they get expelled, where do they go? I know like I've asked this question. I don't know that I'm really clear on what actually happens with these students. And I'm inclined to support our administration, but I would just like to hear more about what happens. I know what happened when I was a teacher. Like those 8th graders would end up at the charter school down the road and then disappear. And it wasn't a good situation for anyone. And I don't know that any kids were safer for the matter.
I do think, coming from my experience, coming from Gateway School, and then, moving to North High where I was in an inclusion classroom, which meant that we would have, for 5 class periods, would have 32 kids who had individual education programs, right, IEPs. And many of those kids were emotionally disturbed. And just that experience and really understanding what ED means, I feel like we aren't doing enough to identify those kids in a K-8 level. It was something that was rarely talked about. I think we have a couple of campuses on Creighton that are self-contained ED classrooms, and I think that the kids achieve a certain amount of success there. And saying that too, Phoenix Union doesn't really do a great service to those kids coming from a self-contained classroom and throwing them onto a 3,000 kid campus. You know what I mean? And having them try to survive in that kind, where they've been self-contained, one teacher all day long, to now having to switch classes with 3,000 other kids. But so I do feel like, I feel like, especially then when you think about Newtown, perhaps we could do more to identify these kids and get them the services that they need. But I personally, and that's my very limited experience, and when you're a new teacher, you don't really know the questions to ask, much less the answers.
Yeah, so this kid in particular, like this last one that I guess caught my attention, this happened after school, and I don't think it was on school campus. It was on the way home. So I guess the concern is like expelling this child from our schools. I don't know that it actually makes our campus safer. It seems like this, especially the latest thing happened not on our campus. I know we're responsible for the students until they get home. I get that. I guess like if we expel this student, how do we know this? Like he's just not like hanging out like 100 feet from the school and causing more problems. Like I don't know if this solves the problem. That's the concern, not only for this individual but also for our students.
I can obtain that information for you. I don't have it this evening, but we do have information.
Did the parent, like, I know we always give them the opportunity to appeal. Did that happen?
We did give them the opportunity, but the parent did not.
And when we serve these papers, this notice, is the parent like given options, like these are other places you can send your child? What are those?
I don't have a list because I haven't been involved in these proceedings, but Dr. Wagner has, but I can get that information, excuse me, from Chris Bloom tomorrow.
But they're given the opportunity.
I mean, that doesn't help me make my decision right now. That's, okay.
Are they given the opportunity to attend Compass Center, or is that where the student is right now awaiting today? Do you know what I mean? Isn't Compass Center like long-term? Oh, okay. It's just I had a student last year who was on a long-term suspension, and then we had to keep him in school, but he was on a long-term suspension, so he ended up at Compass Center.
That could, with long-term it would, but with expulsion, I believe that the family works with the assistant principal at the school, and the assistant principal has a list of places that the parent can seek out to see if that child can become a student at a variety of schools.
I
I feel like bullying is just just cannot be rewarded with, okay, we'll let you back another time, especially since I read in the reports that there was numerous suspensions prior to this. So, I know it seems harsh, and I know there's a lot of kids by the wayside, but, you really have to start at the top. It really has to start at the top and come down. It's not, I don't think it's something.
I don't see this as a reward if we didn't do it. I just don't see that it. I guess I see it differently, not as a reward. It's just not addressing the problem. And I'm not sure that expulsion, in terms of our tolerance level for bullying. I don't know that this is a deterrent. Jean, you taught in our school. What do you think? Are kids worried? If I beat up this kid, I might get kicked out?
It depends on the student. The student that I'm speaking of from last year had tremendous amounts of remorse for what he had done. It was one of those things where as a teenager in the heat of the moment, he did something that was, he wasn't thinking at all. He broke his mother's heart when he did it. It was a tearful meeting when we decided on the long-term suspension. So it depends on the child,
Mm-hmm.
But I think especially when you're, and this goes back kind of to identifying those kids who are ED, but a lot of times they don't have the impulse control to know that at that second that they're making that bad decision, that it's going to negatively hurt them on down the road. You know what I mean? And also as a teacher, I will say, while I certainly I don't like to expel kids for anything necessarily. It's never pleasant to have to get to long-term suspend or expel a kid. It also becomes detrimental to all the other children in that classroom, at that grade level, in that hallway, in the bathroom, wherever. If a child is able to kind of control situations to the point where their kids can't learn, where they can't feel safe, then it seems to me that due diligence has happened here, and this kid has done enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hate to make this analogy, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I've heard some personality conflicts between administrators and teachers in certain schools, and what I hear is maybe this isn't a good setting for this person, and a different setting would be a better, more productive environment for everyone. So maybe that's the same thing with the student. Have we are we not trying to okay, this isn't working here? Maybe a different environment. I don't know what we're doing. I wouldn't want to send this child, no matter what, however we decide. I wouldn't want to send him back. That, not to this school, but we have 9 schools.
Well, knowing Mr. Wolf too, and having worked with him for several years, I guarantee that he has, and knowing that team, most of my team from the middle school is still there. And you're talking about some knowledgeable, loving, tolerant people. They're not teachers who hate teaching or hate kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that every avenue has been exhausted with this kid because Steve Wolf has an incredible amount of patience. And he approaches everything from a positive behavioral intervention standpoint. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So he's certainly not going to make a snap judgment like that. Did I answer your question? I can't remember. I feel like at that campus everything's been done, and
Yeah,
here's
but
the
what
point
about
that he also no,
or I don't want to.
and I don't know how that works, but I have seen him work with some very, very difficult students who in hindsight probably were ED kids, and I've seen him offer them all kinds of really creative solutions, at least for alternatives where they can go, where they can get there relatively easy. And I know that kids have been placed throughout Creighton District when it doesn't work at our school site. So I'm guessing that he probably did everything that he could to recommend a place for this kid.
In the past, we've had a presentation about the interventions that are taking place in the district, and that this might be a larger or a bigger conversation to have at another time. Someone wanting to put that on the future agenda item when we get to it. I know it was really helpful for me to hear all the things that we are doing before we get to this point to prevent this from happening.
Is this the first one in a long time? Because I know you've been a board member for.
There's maybe.
You've been 4 or 8 years, 2 a year.
Maybe 2 a year, and then they're few and far between, which is good. But they sometimes it's easier for me to make my decision when there are guns and fire involved and things like that. Some of them are much more helpful.
Are there any more questions about this particular?
Is there anyone
Expulsion?
here that maybe has some more information about the student, or
I don't-
are we not?
Is there?
I don't have information on this student, but I could give you some more background on what goes on.
No, I mean about the procedure, not him particularly, but, okay. The previous procedure.
Can we speak to what happens just generally within the district from a principal's perspective in terms of intervention? Okay, can you please step forward and share with us your perspective?
Okay. Mike Madison, Monte Vista. Anyway, I think the picture, I've been involved as an AP for many, many years on it, and I think a couple of things. One is just the discussion with ED. To my knowledge, other than if someone was directed, I don't believe in all my years here we've ever expelled a student who actually was labeled ED. We go through multiple things, special placement. We also, as a district, have done other things. There was once not. Compass is what is a placement. We used to have the was it plus or pass? Pass. So it's we went through both names. So yeah. So anyway, and what that was for was at one time in accompaniment with Compass, a program for kids who were having a very difficult time with multiple suspensions, multiple behaviors. And they were sent over there for an extended period of time, which could be more than a quarter usually got you over there. If it was just a few weeks, it wasn't going to get you there. And these, I'm giving you generalities, I don't remember the specific time frame. So that was it. But the other thing was the discussion you had about moving the person from site to site. Although that does occur, usually it does not in the sense of until you burned every possible behavioral bridge and so forth, because then you run into issues of transportation, you run into other things that complicate that option, even if you were to do it. But in general, for an expulsion to occur, and I remember I did an expulsion for a weapon. I never did an expulsion for behavior over all those years. But in preparation for that, there is a sequence of events, and it gets to the point of how many is enough and how many can you take. But the final criteria usually becomes the endangerment of themselves or others. I don't think the expulsion is because the kid is swearing at his teacher repeatedly, although they're in your form, in your parental acknowledgement of behavior form. Excuse me. There are a list of what at one time were considered, if you were removed from class this many times, it was a suspension. If you were taken from the class this many more times after that, then it was a long-term suspension. And it specifies those. You might take a look at that form, because that form has not been changed for many years. But it let kind of the lines in the sand had to be drawn somewhere, and so they set those up. Even with those lines in the sand, through careful wording and individual, the APs are wonderful people for trying to keep a kid in the system by wording it. For example, if you were in 2 fights, is one thing. If it was 3rd fight, it's another. But a scuffle is not the same thing as a fight. If there's no blood, then these are arguments that board members have had over the years. What is a scuffle? What is a fight? Well, all those things led to decisions being made about suspensions. But at a certain point in time, then they go forward. But usually, to get to the expulsion, there certainly has been multiple incidents. There's been multiple interventions by the teacher, multiple interventions by the other people. Usually the school psychologist has been involved at that point in the behavior plan to make sure that there's nothing done on top of it. Usually then the APs have even team up and talk about their discussions. I remember getting phone calls all the time. What did you do when? And so it's not one person's decision usually, especially when you get up to expulsion. It's a group of people that have done. So you can't give anybody all credit. You can't give anybody all the blame for anything that works, because everybody tries to collaborate on that. So over the years, the district then funding kept cut back because plus or pass or what it passed. What it was a teacher was in charge. She actually works at my site now. Briley Colton was over there for a long time, and she was in charge of doing just strictly, not strictly, but a lot of behavior modification. And then hopefully the idea was to bring the student back onto your campus, and then they would perform at, you know, at a better level. Was that always successful? No, but it was an issue. My experience with kids who that are expelled, one of the things is if they go to another site, and what happens to them when they leave us, if they go to another school, my understanding is, and I could be wrong on this one, but my understanding was a district does not have to accept that student that year. They're expelled for it. They can, they don't have to. There are, then what we recommend, APs recommend, or I always consider myself an AP, but what we would recommend, there are charter schools who are specifically developed for behavior-oriented situations, and they're around. So we would refer them to that, and the APs used to keep a list around of those type of schools so they could refer to the parents and the students, so it wasn't a dead-end street you're out on the road. They would try and assist that way. But
Okay, so
that's
in
kind of the
this-
background.
So in this case, it's as though the student is expelled from this school, but in August, he may apply to go to another one of our district schools.
Okay, once the student is expelled, I'm not sure of what Creighton does as far as allowing the student back in. I know it's 1 year from that point, but I don't know how that works.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's helpful, but we've tried a lot of things over the years, like I said, with some programs, and as the funding was cut, then we reduced those programs. But the other thing that districts or the sites are doing is working with Southwest Behavioral and Counseling. That's a common one. Jewish Family Services is a common one, and I'm not sure the other ones. But I don't know. Let's hope it was helpful anyway.
It's very helpful, thank you.
I can address for you too a little bit about Compass and Plus. Good evening, I'm Dana Morrison, the Special Ed Director, and you mentioned Compass. Compass is designed as a placement for kids that have significant emotional disabilities, and then if a child with an IEP does face long-term suspension of over 10 days being removed, then that's an option that we place them in lieu of suspension. So if they've already been identified as a student with a disability, then they do have more protection. And the other piece that you're addressing, these students that are in our system, you know, it is our responsibility to do child find and to identify those students that are suspected of having a disability and identify them and provide the services. So, and we do that on a regular basis. But Compass is a FAPE program where, again, if a student who has an IEP comes up to more than 10 days removal, has a manifestation review, and then a determination is made whether they can be continued to be suspended or expelled, and if so, then they're placed. Compass is our program right now for 5th through 8th. And Plus, which was part of the Compass programming, supported students that were not special ed in lieu of long-term suspension. They could be placed there. It was a school team, and goals were created, and those goals were worked on as well. We also had so many spots for special education students too, in hopes to provide some support and intervention so that they don't get to that point of having a long-term suspension or expulsion. So I hope that clarifies a little bit about Compass. And Compass is still in existence, and we're faced with 3 students right now who are special ed that are coming up to over 10 days, and they'll be placed there. 2 of them for 15 days for sure. Another one maybe for the remainder of the year. And they're placed along with the students that we currently have there who have significant emotional disabilities, and that's been their least restrictive placement. A self-contained program that's not on a campus. So anyway, a little more information to kind of help with all of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Dana.
Dr. Boyle, one last question here. Has this student in particular, is this his first year with the Creighton district, or has he been in our school district longer than this year?
Only because I wasn't involved in this.
If we're wanting to learn more about this specifically, we can always have an executive session so that we can look at that information and talk about it. And if that's something you're concerned about,
I'm just asking, I mean, I
request it.
I think the general things that will help me make a decision tonight, I mean, the decision is to make this happen effective today. And to delay, I think would put a lot of people in limbo. So I'd rather not. But I appreciate the dialogue, and I appreciate the additional information.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I move the governing board approve to expel the reference student.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have business and plan.